The UK is the only country in the EU where forced adoption is legal. Children in the UK can be taken away if parents have anything from mild learning difficulties to left-field political beliefs. How many people are we talking about? Well, local authorities have made 11,000 applications to take children into care in the past 12 months alone. But it turns out around 1,000 of them were adopted for the wrong reasons. It has been argued that it is not a class issue, but around 90% of children who are forcibly adopted come from families that live below the poverty line. And where are the children placed? With middle-class families with higher incomes. With me is John Hemming, Liberal Democrat MP for Birmingham Yardley. Welcome. John, let's start with what forced adoption actually is.
Well, forced adoption is basically where a child is removed from a family, theoretically to protect the child, and then the links with the family are completely broken and the child is put with another family through adoption. And the main desiderata here is significant harm to the child. Well, how do they define significant harm? The act of the risk of significant harm or significant harm is what's supposed to be used by the courts. But that has been used to cover situations such as somebody's political views because they're perhaps racist and they might say things that might upset their children when they're older. Their child is taken from them and put up for adoption. There are actual cases of children being taken away from their birth parents because the local council deemed that the parents were racist. One particular case I can highlight in the Court of Appeal where the appeal failed. The lady concerned went to the Court of Appeal appealing about her case, and the Court of Appeal said, actually, she's quite a good mother, but she might say something when she's older to upset the children. I have been contacted by over 2,000 families. I estimate, actually, when you take everything into account, that the wrongful adoptions figure each year is around about 1,000 and has been for a number of years. But these are very often people without much of a voice. An Italian lady visited the country in 2012 when she was pregnant. She had an episode because she was mentally ill, bipolar. She was sectioned. They forced a cesarean on her, took her baby and put the baby up for adoption. It's a good case to look at because in that case there was an aunt in the family who would be willing to look after the baby and her two sisters in America, and the courts refused that and wanted adoption. And one implication of that class dimension to this, of course, is that basically local government is taking away children from poor families and giving them to middle-class ones. That's effectively what's going on. Why do you think Michael Gove is so pro forced adoption policy? I think, to be fair, he misunderstands what's going on. I don't think he intends for the things to go on that do go on. But because it's all kept very, very secret, and people have been imprisoned in 2013, Anna Cornus was imprisoned in Newcastle for complaining about what happened in the family courts on Facebook. Now, this is an ordinary person put in jail for complaining about what's going on. So parents are gagged from complaining about it and threatened with prison? No, they're not just threatened with prison, but actually imprisoned. And one of the battles I've been having is to stop people being imprisoned in secret. I know, for instance, of 3 cases in May this year where people were imprisoned for contempt of court, but I know there were 11 cases, so there are obviously 8 secret cases from May, and I know there were 8 secret cases from June, and I'm trying to find out what happened there. So one can envisage a situation where shortly after birth, a poor family, the baby is taken away from that family, and when the parents complain that their baby is basically being kidnapped, that hearing is in secret. That hearing is secret. The evidence is all provided by the local authorities. So you have the local authority. In secret? In secret meaning people are not allowed to come in and watch what's going on, and if people talk about what happens in the court hearing, they can go to jail, and do go to jail. It's not that just can go to jail, but people are imprisoned. And do the local authorities give at least the family some advance notice that they're about to take the children away? It varies, but most of the time there is a process going on, which is why some people leave the country to avoid it. So in other words, the local authorities have a huge advantage in these tribunals. Yeah, it's called equality of arms. There is no equality of arms. There is a complete inequality of arms. So the local authority social workers do the assessments. We have a case from where a social worker wanted to reunite a family, so wanted to give the baby back to the parents because her assessment was the parents were competent parents. She was instructed by her management not to reunite the family. She failed to say that to the court and was fired. So when you have managerial pressure, as you do, and you have adoption targets, if you search on the internet, you find the adoption targets for various councils.
And the figures are rising for cases like this.
Yeah, well, what is happening? The figures are rising in a number of ways. They're rising in terms of the number of children taken compulsorily into care. They're also particularly rising in terms of the number of babies taken into care. They're rising in terms of the number of children adopted, and in that forcibly adopted. But most importantly, they're also rising in terms of the number of children murdered by their parents. And I believe the last one, if we take the figures from 2011, we had 16 cases in England where there was a prosecution as a result of the death of a child. In 2013, there were 34 cases, so it more than doubled between one year and the other.
Which is your point, they're taking the wrong children.
They're taking the wrong children.
Britain is one of the only countries in the world that enacts these kinds of forced adoptions.
The USA is really big on it. It's followed
certainly in the European Union.
Yeah, let's look at the Council of Europe as a broader thing, because the Council of Europe, in theory, all follows the European Convention of Human Rights. But if you look at the more recent case, the Italian case, there's an interesting Italian court judgment which said basically that the English court judgment was alien to international law, alien to the Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights. So from an international perspective, England is seen to be failing. Now,
do you think it's against Article 8? And
well, I don't think there's any doubt about it at all.
You're
not allowed to intervene in a private life of a family without it being in the interest of the health necessary for the health or morals of the child. And if you look at the Italian case, that intervention was taking her away from her sisters and her grandmother, not just her mother. The English courts tend to not care about sibling relationships, and they don't really care about grandparents and the like. They won't even allow the grandparents into the court at times. And I think that's wrong myself.
Of course, your coalition partners, the Conservatives, probably don't even particularly care for the EU Human Rights Act. Do you think it contravenes the UN Convention of Rights of the Child?
I think it does that as well, although we're driven primarily here by the European Convention. But both of these things, there are various international treaties in terms of adoption and the like, and it's not supposed to be the first choice. It's supposed to be the last resort.
And what's next in your campaign?
There's a continuing process of raising issues. I'm having a problem with Ofsted, who are responsible for this nationally. They're covering up the statistics or the list of children that are suspected to have died from child abuse.
Why would they do that?
Well, you have to ask them why they say that's because we're going to tell you the statistics in April. But I used to get from them what are called significant incident notifications, which is when it's thought that a child has died from child abuse and neglect. Because if you're never going to prevent everything from going wrong, but you can at least see if you're generally going in the right direction. And my argument has always been on two fronts. There's a massive injustice. I call it tsunami of injustice because it's a lot of wrong cases. But on the other hand, we're also failing to protect children. And the thing is, Ofsted, whose job it is nationally to monitor this, I've asked them for figures they used to give me and lists they used to give me, and they've decided to clam up now.
John Hemming, thank you.